Hey there, Jim Johnson from Accent Help here. So, somebody in a comment brought something up about how different vowels can actually sound very much the same when what follows them is an L sound. So, this is super common in American accents. It happens elsewhere as well. But an example that I like to use of this is this post vowel L. Well, what really commonly happens with a post vowel L after the vowel is that the L becomes darker, is what it's commonly called, a dark L as opposed to a light L. So a word like will have usually what people think of as an L, but then if you say it after the vowel in a word like feel, you might notice that L probably happens in a different spot for you. The odds are very good that somehow it's moving further back. That sort of rounded quality, that richer quality to the sound, that pulled back quality is what's sometimes called a dark L, as opposed to the pre-vowel L that's commonly called a light L. It's got a thinner quality to it, a not as rounded quality. You move something further back and it sounds more rounded, it sounds richer. There's usually like a richer tone to the voice. Anyway, what commonly happens is this L in many accents commonly becomes something that's a little bit vowel-like, almost like an oo, as in goose, or like a W-like sound. So you might think of, for example, like Cockney going towards feel, o, which might be like a W, like an oo, like an O. So something a little bit more vowel-like. Well, an L sound is commonly thought of in phonetic terms as an approximant. It almost sounds like approximate, like it's approximately close, but not quite there. That's one of the ways to maybe remember that. Other approximants that are commonly used are the Y sound, which is almost the equivalent of the vowel sound of E, as in fleece, and also the R sound, which is this and then there's a vowel version of that that's commonly used as well. Anyway, this consonant sort of vowel match up happens with the other approximants. And I think there's something like that that often happens with the L. Well, sometimes people still reach sort of slightly towards that L, like the tongue is going to reach up towards the gum ridge, the alveolar ridge, in order to try to do that. But it may not make it there, or it may do that, but it's post-alveolar, almost becoming retroflex, like it's pulling back a little bit, palatal almost. So that can start to pull back, and oftentimes the back of the tongue is bunching as well. One of the ways that I like to note this is with a wavy line through it, which means velarized or pharyngealized. Your velum is your soft palate, or your pharynx, pharyngealized is your throat. So pulling it back is really, really common. Well, in this action of this post vowel L, however you want to note it, in this action of this, what oftentimes happens to that vowel before it is that vowel becomes less recognizable, less distinct, and they can really start to blend together. The example that I like to use all the time is imagine that you had a really boring toy baby that was made of bananas. So it's a really dull dole, as in dole bananas, doll. So it's a doll, as many people say it, a doll. So try that little phrase for yourself, a dull dole doll might for you become a doll, where it's almost impossible to tell the difference between those. So what happens is this vowel before it oftentimes gets morphed in a lot of accents. This is super common throughout the US. So they're much less recognizable. They're sort of mid-centralized, moving towards the schwa sound to some degree, certainly less distinct. But even in the example that I gave you, dull and dole are a couple of sounds that oftentimes have a neutralization to them in American speech. So that could happen anyway slightly, but that L really pushes it. Sometimes it's really hard to tell the difference if somebody says feel or fill. They'll say, Phil, how do you feel? Well, can you fill my prescription? Right? I'm full of feels, right? That would be I am feel full. So that would maybe be feelful, feelful, or fill would be feelful, feelful, fill. For some people, that's going to sound identical, but even feel and full, which are potentially really different from each other, feel full, are just like a smaller shift. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense why there's a lot of vowel morphing, and it can sound like sounds really come together when there's an L after them in a lot of accents. For more info on accents for actors, check out accenthelp.com.